Welcome to Blind Gun's first Horus Heresay battle report. This is going to be a standard 1250 point, well, maybe not so standard, but a smaller 1250 point battle between Space Wolves and Imperial Fists. If you're looking for beautifully painted models, this isn't going to be the video for you. This is my first attempt doing a Horus Heresay or 30K battle report. I'm using a new GoPro camera, and unlike my previous videos for Aeronautica Imperialis, there's only going to be a single camera view here, and it's going to be a lot of stop starts. So I apologize if it gets a little confusing for some people. Again, this is my first attempt doing any sort of 40K report. So let's start with the Space Wolf army list. Going left to right, we have a Proteus Land Raider, and although it's actually missing the physical guns, it's got twin-linked heavy bolter in the front, regular las cannons on the sides. The only extra is a searchlight, and I buy the searchlight just in case we roll for a night fight mission. My warlord is going to be a Speaker of the Dead, which is a basic centurion promoted to be my equivalent of a chaplain. Next unit over, a unit of 12 Slayers, all armed with bolt pistols, frenzian axes, and combat shields, with the exception of Sergeant. Instead of the axe, he has a Thunderhammer, just in case my opponent brings too many Land Raiders or Dreadnoughts. Next unit over is a unit of Stalkers. Unfortunately, I can only take 10 of them. I didn't have the points to take an extra 2. They're all armed with bolt pistols, bolters, and chainswords. You can see the chainsword sticking out of the back from some of them. All the models are carrying a chainsword. All except the Sergeant, that is, he's carrying a Thunderhammer as well. And the final 12 unit is a regular tactical unit. I take these partially because they're cheap, and I don't have any high expectations for them. They're all armed with bolt pistols, bolters with chain bayonets, except for the Sergeant. He's got a power sword and a plasma pistol. Final unit is my elite Varigera, or however you pronounce them. As you can see, Terminator Squad, 2 with Frost Claws, 1 with a Power Fist and Combi Bolter, 1 with a Chain Fist and Combi Bolter, and the Sergeant with a Frost Sword and Combi Bolter. When I originally did up this list and fought it, I had thought I was at 1243 for points. Looking at the list just before I did this narration, I realized I forgot to charge for the plasma pistol that the Speaker of the Dead is carrying. So technically, I broke the 1250 point limit. It's 1253. I'm going to have to ask my opponent for some forgiveness on this one. So let's look at the Imperial Fists. By the way, I did warn you that not everything is painted perfectly yet, and this is a good example why. My opponent wanted to teach me a lesson because I told him he could only bring one dreadnought. He has a habit of bringing multiple dreadnoughts to 1500 point games or less, and I just find it's unfair. I don't like fighting multiple dreadnoughts like that. So I gave him a limit, and he showed up with 1 Vindicator. I believe it's just a standard loadout, nothing extra on there. A Sakaran battle tank. His side sponsons are the heavy bolters. And as you can see, Leviathan, fully equipped with close combat weapons and the Volkite chargers. Next, he has a regular squad of 10 tactical marines, all of them with chain bayonets. I don't know if you can see them there or not. His Sergeant with a power weapon. And then he has a 20-man blob tactical marines, again, all with chain bayonets. And his Sergeant with plasma pistol and another power weapon. I believe it's Power Claw. Finally, we have a 5-man heavy support, all with heavy bolters. I find this unit to be a major nuisance. He always has it, but I've learned to deal with it. And the last figure, although it's a Praetor model, I don't remember if it was actually a Praetor or a Centurion. I don't have his army list nearby, so I can follow up on that. And according to him, this is 1250 points or less. So I'm not sure whose idea it was, but we decided instead of using the core missions in the core rulebook, we've actually played a number of games up to this point, we decided to try the new core missions in the Siege of Cthonia. So we rolled and ended up with core mission number 4, which is Take and Hold. Take and Hold is an interesting mission in that, for one thing, it's only 4 turns. Most of the missions seem center around 5 turns. Also, there's only 2 objectives in the game, 1 in each deployment zone. So the victory conditions for the primary objective is at the end of each of their player turns, the active player scores 1 victory point if they control a single objective, or 3 victory points if they control 2 objective markers. You also gain victory points from the secondary objectives. Now that's going to make a big difference, and we'll talk about this later at the end of the game. But there are slight differences in the secondary objectives between the core rulebook and this new campaign book. So, on with the game. So here's my deployment. I have the Slayers hiding behind this piping with the Speaker of the Dead. Then the middle is pretty much empty. Then I got my Land Raider with the Terminators inside. Tactical Squad hiding in the ruin, looking for best angles and distance. And my... Oops, I got backwards. These are the Slayers. They're going to try to do an end run. And the Stalkers are over there. Graham's side, he's got his heavy support hiding up in the ruin, 20-man tactical squad, his Leviathan hiding over there with his Sakaran tank, and then in the middle he's got his Vindicator with his 10-man squad. I have to try to capture that objective over there, and Graham's going to have to try to capture this objective over here. So Graham's finished his movement phase. He's moved his heavy squad forward a bit. Dreadnought sort of sidestepped, and the 20-man blob is coming around the corner. The Sakaran came around the ruin. The Vindicator backed up. I don't know why, but he had a logical reason for it, he thinks. And the other 10-man squad is just going to stay and guard the objective. So Graham's shooting phase didn't go very well. His heavy bolters and his Sakaran tank and that 20-man blob, of which only 2 could draw a line of sight, opened fire on my stalkers and killed 1 stalker. One. Terrible. Nothing happening over there. So my stalker squad was chicken. They ran over to here. My tactical squad ran from over there to over here to try to get better shots. And my Slayers ran over here because we were afraid of the Vindicator. And my Land Raider moved up just a little bit. We managed to get a flank shot on the Vindicator, did 3 hull points, and immobilized him. And then the heavy bolters took out 2 guys from that 20-man blob. And I don't have any other shots in range. So that's my Space Wolves turn 1 move and shooting in 1 shot. So the tank came forward just a little bit. These guys went and ran, and then the main unit also ran forward. Leviathan came forward. Those guys continue to hold. In the shooting phase, the blob only had line of sight with 3 guys. They did nothing. The Sakaran took out 3 guys. Yeah. Normally that would be a leadership test for the Stalkers, except I've got Speaker of the Dead with them, and we're stubborn. We pass all morale tests. And as you can tell, Graham's not happy, and that ends his turn 2. So Graham's complaining, he thinks I'm cheating. The stalkers came out from behind and climbed up on top of the containers. Thank you. My brain just froze. I was going to say cartons, and I'm like, that's not right. My tactical squad moved over to make a firing squad. My tank moved forward maximum 12 and disengaged or disengorged the Terminators.
Yes.
And my Slayers have run up behind that building, and I think maybe I didn't need to, but I did. Going on to the shooting phase. Turn 2, Space Wolves. So, end of the Space Wolf combat turn 2. Well, we made a firing squad and wreaked havoc on those poor tacticals. And then they got charged by the Wolf Guards. Sadly, the Wolf Guard can't do the follow-up move, so when they failed their test, they got away. Not very far, as you can see. But the good news is they're blocking the path to the Leviathan, so we'll see what happens there. But overall, Space Wolves did very good on their firing line.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, now the heavy squad is in position and they don't need to move, so they're going to get their full ballistic skill this time. So, already an interesting development in Graham's turn 3. He failed his morale test, so they're going to continue to flee. Unfortunately, that's going to open my Terminators up to a charge from the Leviathan. So while Graham's counting his dice, the Cthonia moved forward enough that he could turn his turret to get a line of sight on my Land Raider. His Leviathan moved forward, and I reacted by running back a whole 3 inches, because I -1 on my initiative when I'm doing a reaction. And now his heavy bolter squad is firing at my poor little stalkers. How many hits did you get? A lot. Okay. 3 plus to wound.
So what is it? About half.
Take out the onesies and twosies. Give me the bad news.
So 3, 6, 7, 9.
So 9 wounds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I save on a 3 plus, and I have feel no pain 5 plus. So 1, 2. I failed 2 saves. I get 5 plus feel no pain. Both will fail. I'll take off this guy and this guy.
Oh, you can pick off the fancy thing.
So, unfortunately, 2 out of 2, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That'll be a leadership test for me. But my Speaker of the Dead is stubborn. I ignore all morale tests.
Of course.
So, end of Graham's turn 3 shooting. The Cthonia sort of, it managed to hit the Land Raider, but wasn't able to penetrate it.
Yeah.
He needed to do a 6 on wound to do something. The heavy bolter team decimated my poor stalker team, but thankfully the Speaker of Dead is stubborn, so there's no morale test for them. And Leviathan did some shooting at the Terminators, but we managed to save everything there. So, end of Graham's assault phase. Obviously Leviathan made it in. He was unable to hit me and wound me because I have my +1 weapon skill. I'm actually hitting and wounding on 4. Hitting him on 4 is the same as him. Unfortunately, out of these 5 Terminators, there's 1 chain fist and 1 power fist. Those are the only 2 guys that can hurt him. Oh, and the sergeant can hurt him on a roll of 6. And needs to say, nobody did any damage. It's a draw. Carry on to the next turn. So, Space Wolf, turn 3. Obviously, my Terminators aren't going anywhere. They're enjoying the fight too much. My Stalker squad came off the containers and are hiding behind them now, trying to stay out of sight of both Graham's heavy weapon squad and Scarab tank. My Land Raider pivoted just enough to take and see the enemy. And I'm leaving these guys up here, and we'll be taking pot shots at the heavy squad, and we'll see how badly that goes. And finally, over here, my Slayer squad ran forward, carefully keeping out of the front line of that tank, because the tank actually can still fire. It just has limited arc of fire. But yeah, I'm hoping I can take and charge him this turn. We'll see what his reactions are. So Space Wolf turn, I hid behind the cart. They came up here, tried to do some shooting. I moved forward, Graham reacted with the Imperial Fist countercharge, so we're going to be engaged. There was no shooting in the shooting phase. Into the shooting phase, my tactical squad shot at the heavies. They reacted and shot back, so they killed one tactical squad. But that did away with his reaction, so my Land Raiders fired at the Cthonia, and I rolled a 7 on the armor penetration table, so sorry, Graham.
Oh, you're not.
This is the beginning of the charge phase, or the assault phase. Everybody's consolidated into combat. It looks like everybody gets to swing. We'll come back after the results are done. So I sort of screwed up. Anyway, after the big mess here, there were only that many of the 10 left, or 11 if you count the Praetor, and I lost all of my other guys here. I failed my morale, or I failed the morale, ran away, then I failed my morale again, had to continue to run away, and that ended my turn. He had tried to charge, but failed his distance roll. My last cannons took out one of the heavy bolter guys sitting in the tower. These guys did nothing else. And basically, this is going to be a tie game based on the primary objective, because we always had somebody within distance of our own objective.
No one has won any objectives at all.
So the primaries have not been, make no difference. He finally ground down my Terminators down to a single Wolf Guard. However, I still don't care. Units destroyed. There's only, well, okay. His 20-man unit became counts as dead because they were still running away at the end of the game. My Slayers count as dead because they were still running away. I get 1 point for destroying a tank. So as near as I can tell, both the Warlords are still alive. I get 1.2 grams, no points, and it's too close.
That unit back there.
Yeah, but it's a case of whoever loses the most. So I only get, if I had lost by 5, I would still only get 1 point because it's a secondary objective. So the fact that you lost the tank and that 20-man unit,
You won by 1.
I won by 1, but I can only claim 1 victory point anyway. But yeah, very close battle, very grindy. I'm seriously thinking of getting rid of the Slayers. They bounce. They don't do much.
Actually, what are you talking about? The ones with the shields do good.
So let's talk scoring. As I indicated in the main video, I screwed up. I thought for some reason that the distance you could be from the objective was 6 inches. No, it's only 3. It's a 6-inch diameter. So turns out the Space Wolves, specifically the Stalker pack, was more than 3 inches away from the objective for 3 of the 4 turns. So no matter how you score it, Space Wolves get 1 point, Imperial Fists get 4. That takes us to the secondary objectives. If we use the core book objectives, you have Slay the Warlord. Neither of us were able to kill the Warlord, so 0 points there. Last Man Standing. Technically, I had more surviving units because we both started off with 6 units. He lost his 1 tank and 1 unit of 20 tactical Marines. Whereas technically I only lost the Slayers, who were still fleeing when they were running back. So that would be 1 point for me. Attrition, again, If you include the falling back squads, it was 2 of his versus 1 of mine, so I would get a point for attrition. Line breaker, nobody made it to the other side of the table, so nobody gets that. And price of failure, there were no Lords of War, so nobody gets that. So that would end with the victory points for Imperial Fists 4 versus Space Wolves 3. Shows you how close a game it could have been. If I had remembered to stay near my objective for 2 turns, I would have won. If we look at the new secondary campaign book, they're slightly different. We have Slay the Warlord. Again, no points for either of us. Then there's Giant Killer, and that's dealing with super heavies, knights, lumbering vehicles, etc. Again, nobody had anything, so no points there. Last Man Standing. Again, it's very similar to what we have for the main core rulebook. Space Wolves would have got the point for that. There's 2 new objectives in the campaign book. One is called Break Their Ranks, and the other one is called First Strike. I'm going to read these to you because to me they sound the same. Break the ranks. If a player causes 1 or more enemy units to have all their remaining models removed as casualties, units that fall back off the battlefield count for this purpose. In their first player turn as the active player, then the player scores 1 victory point. If at least one of the units removed was elites or HQ choice, then you score an additional victory point. So Break the Ranks only works in the first turn. First Strike. If a player causes an enemy unit to be entirely removed as casualties, units that fall back off the battlefield count for this purpose. During the first game turn of the battle, then that player scores 1 victory point. If the enemy unit was also an elites or HQ choice, then an additional point is scored. So both of them, as near as I can tell, only apply in the first turn. And Break the Ranks is only if it's your active player turn. So neither of us get victory points for that. It seems like there should be an FAQ for these 2. I'm thinking one of those should not be for just the first turn. But as it stands, using the campaign book secondary objectives, it would be Imperial Fists 4 points versus Space Wolves 2 points. Again, if I had stayed near the objective with my stalkers like I was supposed to have, I still could have won the battle. So, good game for Imperial Fists. They won the battle no matter how you look at it. And I need to remember to read the objectives for next time. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this game. And please comment any suggestions with regards to these recordings. Thank you very much and have a good day.